3 years ago, when you flew to Dublin for my father's funeral and just sat with me in silence, something shifted. You didn't try to fix my grief. You just showed up. And I realized you were the only person who'd ever really seen me. Not Isla Monroe, the successful entrepreneur. Just Isla. Viktor remembered that day. The cold ocean. How right it felt to be beside her. After that, every board meeting became torture, Isla continued. Every late-night strategy session felt impossible because you were so close and completely unavailable. I started avoiding Thursday dinners because sitting across from you, pretending I didn't want more, was destroying me. I thought you were bored with me. I was protecting myself. Badly. Isla winced as she shifted position. Then Damien suggested I walk away entirely. Dissolve the partnership. Build something new somewhere else. Start fresh without the constant reminder of what I couldn't have. And you agreed. I agreed because staying felt like slowly bleeding out. But driving to meet the lawyer, I kept thinking about that rooftop. Where we started. And I realized I didn't want to start over. I wanted to fight for what we'd built. Even if fighting meant being honest about loving you and risking rejection. You wouldn't have been rejected. I didn't know that. Isla's voice broke. You'd been so distant. So cold. I convinced myself you'd figured out how I felt and were pulling away because you didn't feel the same. Viktor lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. I was pulling away because being near you without telling you I loved you was killing me. We were destroying each other by trying to protect each other. Promise me something, Isla said softly. Anything. No more protecting ourselves by hiding. No more assuming we know what the other feels without asking. If we're going to turn our partnership into something more, we do it with complete honesty. Even when it's terrifying. Especially when it's terrifying, Viktor agreed. Because hiding almost cost me everything. The door opened. Damien Cross stood there, dark hair disheveled from travel, eyes scanning until they landed on Isla. He crossed to her quickly, carefully hugging her uninjured side. You scared the hell out of me, he said, voice thick. Then he looked at Viktor, one eyebrow raised. I'm guessing you two finally had the conversation? You knew? Viktor asked. I've known for 3 years that Isla was in love with you. And I figured out 6 months ago you felt the same but were both too stubborn to admit it. Damien shook his head. I told her dissolving the partnership was a terrible idea. I was terrified, Isla said. You're always terrified of things that matter most. Damien turned to Viktor. And you? Hiring a private investigator? Really? Viktor had the grace to look embarrassed. Not my finest moment. Not even close. But Damien extended his hand. I'm Damien Cross. Isla's cousin. The man you've been irrationally jealous of for months. Viktor shook his hand, feeling ridiculous. Viktor Ashford. The idiot who almost lost everything because he couldn't communicate basic emotions. Well, you're both idiots, Damien said cheerfully. But you're idiots who love each other. So maybe there's hope. Dr. Reyes returned an hour later, insisting Isla needed rest. Viktor stood reluctantly, but Isla's hand tightened around his. Stay, she said. Please. Ms. Monroe needs to sleep, the doctor said firmly. He is family, Isla said, voice gaining strength despite exhaustion. He's the person I'm building my life with. That makes him family. Dr. Reyes looked between them, seemed to recognize something, and nodded. 1 more hour. After the doctor left, Viktor pulled his chair closer. The partnership. Meridian Ventures. We need to talk about what happens now. Now we keep building, Viktor said simply. Together. Like we always have. But honestly this time. It changes everything, Viktor. Mixing business and personal feelings. What if it doesn't work? What if we don't try and spend the rest of our lives wondering what we were too afraid to reach for? Viktor brought her hand to his chest, letting her feel his heartbeat. When that hospital called, when I thought you might die, the only thing I could think was that I'd wasted 7 years being too afraid to tell you the truth. I don't want to waste another second. Tears pooled in Isla's eyes. I'm scared. So am I, terrified. But I'm more scared of living without you than I am of risking everything to be with you. What if the board objects? Then we prove them wrong. Like we've proven everyone wrong who said our business model wouldn't work. Who said partnership between two strong personalities would fail? Viktor leaned closer. We've conquered impossible things before, Isla. Together. This is just another impossible thing to conquer. Isla was quiet for a long moment, searching his face. When I get out of this hospital, we do this right. No rushing. We date. We learn each other outside of boardrooms. We figure out who we are when we're not building empires. I should warn you, I'm terrible at dating. You flew 14 hours to sit with me at my father's funeral. You remember how I take my coffee. Viktor, you've been romantic for 7 years. You just called it professionalism. Viktor felt something tight in his chest loosen. That's romance? For you, showing love through actions is who you are. It's one of the things I fell in love with. Viktor studied her face, memorizing this moment. The woman he loved, battered but alive, finally is to love openly. 6 months later, on that same rooftop where everything began, Viktor knelt before Isla with a ring, 2 bands intertwined, platinum and rose gold meeting at a diamond. We started here as partners with a vision, he said. Now I'm asking you to become my wife. To build not just companies but a life. To choose each other every day, even when it's hard. Isla pulled him to his feet. No kneeling. We're equals, remember? Always equals, Viktor agreed. Then yes. Forever yes. Their greatest empire wasn't built with money or strategy. It was built with honesty. With courage to be vulnerable. With choosing each other despite fear. If this story reminded you that the greatest risk is honesty and the greatest reward is being truly seen, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment about a time fear almost cost you something precious. Subscribe because we bring you stories about real human connection every week, stories that prove love isn't about perfection, it's about choosing each other despite the fear. Thanks for being here. Isla tried to speak around the ventilator tube. Viktor pressed the call button, then leaned close. Don't try to talk. You're in the hospital. Car accident. But you're okay. You're going to be okay. Medical staff rushed in. A nurse removed the ventilator tube carefully while Isla coughed and gasped. Dr. Reyes appeared, checking her pupils with a light, asking questions about pain levels and memory. The last thing I remember is driving, Isla said hoarsely. I was going to meet. She stopped, her eyes finding Viktor's again. Where's my phone? Isla, you need to rest. Where's my phone? More urgent now, almost panicked. A nurse retrieved a sealed bag from a drawer. Inside was Isla's phone, screen shattered. Isla grabbed it with her uninjured hand, wincing. She pressed the power button. Nothing. Dead battery. I need to charge this. Now. Ms. Monroe, you've been through severe trauma, Dr. Reyes said gently. Whatever's on your phone can wait. No, it can't. Tears started streaming down Isla's face. You don't understand. Viktor doesn't understand. Nobody understands, and I was trying to tell him, and now. Tell me what? Viktor moved closer. Isla, what were you trying to tell me? She looked at him with such anguish that Viktor felt his heart crack. I wasn't meeting you last night. I was meeting with my lawyer. To dissolve our partnership. The room went silent except for the steady beep of monitors. Viktor stepped backward like he'd been struck. What? Everyone out, Dr. Reyes said firmly, ushering nurses toward the door. Mr. Ashford, you should leave. No. Isla's voice was weak but determined. He stays. We're finishing this. The medical staff retreated. Viktor stood frozen, unable to process what he'd heard. 7 years. 7 years of building something extraordinary together. And Isla wanted to dissolve it. Why? The word came out broken. Isla struggled to sit up, wincing. Viktor moved automatically to help, adjusting pillows behind her back. Even now, his instinct was to take care of her. Because I'm in love with you, Isla said quietly. And I can't keep working with you while pretending I'm not. Time stopped. Viktor stared at her, certain he'd misheard. Certain reality couldn't shift this fundamentally in a single sentence. What? I'm in love with you, Viktor. I have been for 3 years. Maybe longer. I can't keep showing up every day, sitting in meetings, making decisions together, while my heart breaks every time you treat me like just a business partner. But Damien is my cousin. Isla's laugh was bitter. My cousin who I was talking to about you. Who I've been crying to for months about drowning in feelings I can't admit. Who helped me find the courage to walk away before loving you destroyed me completely. Viktor's legs gave out. He sank into the chair, his entire understanding of reality reconstructing itself. Your cousin. My mother's sister's son. We grew up together. That dinner in Dubai? I was asking his advice about whether to tell you the truth or protect our partnership by leaving. That phone call you saw? I was telling him I'd decided to dissolve Meridian Ventures because I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't pretend. I pulled away because I thought you were falling for him, Viktor said, his voice hollow. I saw you together and I lost my mind with jealousy. I hired a private investigator, Isla. I violated your privacy because I was terrified of losing you. Isla closed her eyes. You hired someone to follow me. It was wrong. A violation of everything we've built. But I was desperate and scared and I didn't know how to handle feeling this way about you. Feeling what way? Viktor looked at her, at the woman who'd been his partner for 7 years, who'd seen him at his worst and still chose to show up, who'd built an empire beside him while he was too blind to see what was right in front of him. In love with you, he said simply. Completely, terrifyingly, irrationally in love with you. I have been for years and I convinced myself that keeping quiet was protecting our partnership. That friendship was enough. That admitting how I felt would ruin everything. Tears streamed down Isla's face. You're in love with me. Yes. And you thought I was in love with Damien. Yes. So you became cold and distant instead of just asking. Yes. And I decided to dissolve our partnership instead of just telling you. Yes. They stared at each other, 7 years of miscommunication laid bare between them. Then Isla started laughing. It was pained, interrupted by winces from her cracked ribs, but genuine. We're idiots, she said. Brilliant, successful, absolutely catastrophic idiots. Viktor felt a laugh bubble up despite everything. Despite the hospital. Despite the accident. Despite nearly losing her. Catastrophic is accurate. I almost died, Viktor. I was driving to meet my lawyer, crying so hard I could barely see, because I was about to destroy the most important thing in my life. And you were preparing to confess on the same rooftop where we started everything. Terrible timing. The worst. Isla reached for his hand with her uninjured one. But we're here now. And I'm alive. And we're finally being honest. Viktor laced his fingers through hers, feeling warmth returning to her skin. What happens now? Now you tell me everything. No more hiding. No more protecting ourselves by staying silent. If we're going to risk everything by admitting how we feel, then we do it completely honestly. So Viktor told her everything. About watching her and feeling jealousy for the first time. About panic attacks returning because hiding his feelings became unbearable. About canceling meetings because being near her without touching her was torture. About the private investigator and the photograph and the shame. Isla listened, her thumb tracing circles on his palm. When he finished, she took a shaky breath. My turn. 26 hours of suspended anxiety followed. Viktor moved through meetings like a ghost, signing documents without reading them, responding to emails with single words. His assistant asked twice if he was feeling well. Viktor lied both times. By 8 o'clock, he'd rehearsed 17 different versions of what he wanted to say. All of them felt inadequate. How do you confess love when confession might destroy the only relationship that's ever felt real? The rooftop was empty when Viktor arrived. City lights sparkled below. The air was warm with late summer heat. He checked his phone. 8:03. Isla was never late. 8:15. Nothing. At 8:27, Viktor's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Ashford? A woman's voice, professional and strained. This is Barcelona General Hospital. Ms. Monroe listed you as her emergency contact. There's been an accident. The world tilted sideways. Viktor's vision tunneled. What kind of accident? Car collision on the coastal highway. She's in surgery now. You should come immediately. Viktor was already moving, running for the elevator, his carefully prepared speech forgotten, replaced by a single desperate prayer. Please. Please let her be okay. The hospital hallway smelled like antiseptic and fear. Viktor's shoes squeaked against linoleum as a nurse led him through identical corridors. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Somewhere a machine beeped steadily, marking time that felt both too fast and agonizingly slow. She's out of surgery, the nurse said without looking back. Stable but critical. Stable but critical. Contradictory words that made no sense. How could Isla be both safe and in danger? They stopped outside a private room. Through the small window, Viktor saw medical equipment, monitors displaying incomprehensible numbers, and Isla lying motionless in the bed. Her face was pale against white pillows. A ventilator tube disappeared between her lips. Bandages covered her shoulder and wrapped around her ribs. Purple bruises bloomed across her collarbone. Family only, the nurse said. I'm her partner. The words came automatically. Are you married? We're business partners. She has no other family. Check her records. I'm her emergency contact. The nurse consulted her tablet, frowned, then nodded. 15 minutes. Viktor entered like he was approaching something sacred. Isla looked small, vulnerable in ways he'd never seen. Her left arm was casted. He pulled a chair close and took her uninjured hand. It was cold. He rubbed warmth into her fingers, remembering all the times these hands had gestured while explaining brilliant strategies, had touched his shoulder in silent support during difficult meetings. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. For the investigation. For the jealousy. For being too afraid to tell you the truth. I spent 7 years protecting myself and I almost lost you without ever being honest. The monitors beeped steadily. Isla didn't move. I hired a private investigator because I was jealous and scared. I saw you with Damien and convinced myself you were choosing him over me. I invaded your privacy because I'm a coward. A doctor entered, exhaustion etched into his features. Mr. Ashford? I'm Dr. Reyes. I performed Ms. Monroe's surgery. Viktor stood quickly. How bad is it? Broken arm, 3 cracked ribs, severe concussion. We had to relieve pressure on her brain from the impact. The next 48 hours are critical. If she wakes up without complications, her prognosis is good. If she wakes up, the brain is unpredictable after trauma. But I need to ask, was Ms. Monroe under unusual stress recently? Viktor's stomach dropped. Why? The accident report indicates she may have been driving erratically. No substances, but witnesses said she seemed distracted. I'm trying to understand what contributed. The guilt hit like a physical blow. Their fight. His accusations. Had Victor's jealousy literally driven her to this? We had an argument yesterday, Victor said quietly. It was my fault. Dr. Reyes made a note. Emotional distress can impair judgment. After the doctor left, Victor returned to Isla's bedside. He sat through the night, holding her hand, watching monitors trace her heartbeat in green lines. Hospital staff came and went. Victor didn't move. At 3 a.m, his phone buzzed. Damien Cross. Just heard about Isla. Catching the next flight to Barcelona. She told me about your situation. We need to talk. Your situation. What situation? What had Isla told Damien about them? Victor stared at the message, anger and confusion warring with exhaustion. But underneath was fear. Fear that Isla had confided in Damien about things she hadn't shared with Victor. He typed back, she's stable. Family only right now. I'm not asking permission. She matters to me. I'll be there by noon. Victor wanted to throw his phone. Wanted to tell Damien to stay away. But what right did he have? He'd spent months being cold and suspicious while Damien had apparently been someone Isla trusted. As dawn light crept through the window, Victor realized how badly he'd failed. 7 years of partnership and he'd never been completely honest. Had hidden behind professional boundaries. Had let fear dictate everything. And now Isla lay unconscious, possibly because of the emotional chaos Victor created. A nurse entered to check vitals. You should go home, Mr. Ashford. Rest. She won't wake for hours yet. I'm staying. Family can stay. But you said you're business partners. I'm her family, Victor said firmly. I'm the person who shows up. The person who stays. That makes me family. The nurse studied his face, seemed to see something there, and nodded. There's a waiting room with a couch. But Victor didn't move. He stayed in that uncomfortable chair, hand wrapped around Isla's cold fingers, thinking about all the conversations they'd never had. All the times he'd swallowed words that mattered because speaking them felt too risky. At 9 a.m, Isla's hand twitched in his. Victor sat up straight. Isla? Her eyelids fluttered. Monitors beeped faster. Then her eyes opened slowly, unfocused, scanning the room until they found Victor's face. The pen snapped between Viktor Ashford's fingers. Ink bled across the $400 million contract, spreading like poison across numbers that suddenly meant nothing. His jaw clenched as he watched through the glass wall. Isla Monroe stood in the conference room, phone pressed to her ear, and then she smiled. That smile. The one she'd never given him in 7 years of building their empire together. The kind that lit up her entire face, transforming her from the controlled CEO he knew into someone unguarded and radiant. Victor's chest tightened. Who was making her smile like that? His mind supplied the answer before he could stop it, Damien Cross. The new energy consultant who'd somehow infiltrated every aspect of their business in 3 months. Every meeting. Every strategy session. Every moment that used to belong to Victor and Isla alone. His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Ashford, Singapore is waiting for your signature. $400 million. 6 months of negotiations. And all Victor could think about was whether Isla had been talking to Damien for weeks behind his back. Whether those late-night texts she claimed were about Morocco projections were actually something else entirely. Whether he'd already lost the only person who'd ever mattered. The door opened. Isla walked in, tucking her phone away, her expression shifting to professional neutrality. The mask she wore for everyone. Except Victor had always believed he saw beneath it. Now he wondered if he'd been deluding himself for 7 years. Morocco numbers came through, she said, setting her tablet on his desk. Her voice was steady, businesslike. Damien's projections were accurate. We should move forward with the partnership. Damien. Victor kept his voice level even as anger coiled in his gut. You're calling him Damien now. Isla's eyes narrowed. That's his name. Her gaze dropped to the ruined contract. What happened? Accident. You don't have accidents. She moved closer, studying his face with that intensity that usually made him feel understood. Now it made him feel exposed, vulnerable. What's wrong? The question hung between them. Viktor could feel 7 years of careful control slipping through his fingers like the ink still staining his hands. Who were you talking to? When? Just now. You were smiling. Isla went very still. The silence stretched, expanding into something dangerous. When she spoke, her voice was dangerously quiet. Are you monitoring my phone calls? I saw you through the glass. You looked happy. And that's a problem? It is when you haven't smiled like that in weeks. The words came faster now, pushed by months of suppressed jealousy. It is when the last time we had dinner, you spent the entire meal checking your phone. It is when I'm standing here watching our partnership dissolve and you're too distracted to notice. Isla flinched like he'd slapped her. Then her expression hardened into something Viktor had never seen directed at him. Pure anger. Our partnership is dissolving? That's what you think is happening? I think something's changed. I think you're pulling away and you won't tell me why. Maybe I'm pulling away because you've become impossible. Her voice rose, cracking the professional veneer. Every conversation is an interrogation. You've spent 2 months being cold and distant, and now you're angry that I stopped trying to fix it? Viktor stood abruptly, his chair scraping against marble. I'm cold? You canceled our Tokyo trip. You stopped coming to Thursday dinners. You suddenly have endless meetings with Damien Cross that somehow can't include me. Those are business meetings. Are they? Viktor heard himself say it. Heard the jealousy he'd been choking on for months finally break free. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're building something with him that doesn't include me. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's your choice. But don't pretend I'm imagining the distance between us. Isla's hands trembled as she picked up her tablet. Her knuckles were white around the edges. I have a call in 10 minutes. Of course you do. She stopped at the door, her back rigid. For 7 years, Viktor, I thought you knew me. I thought you saw me. But right now, I don't think you see anything except your own fear. The door closed with a quiet click that sounded like an ending. Viktor stood alone in his office, surrounded by the billion-dollar empire they'd built together, and felt everything crumbling. The Barcelona skyline glittered beyond the windows, indifferent, beautiful, mocking. His phone buzzed. A message from the private investigator he'd hired 3 weeks ago in a moment of desperate suspicion he immediately regretted but hadn't canceled. The message contained a single photograph. Isla and Damien Cross leaving a restaurant in Dubai at midnight. His hand rested on her lower back. Her head tilted toward him in conversation, intimate and easy. The date stamp read 3 days ago. The same night Isla told Viktor she was too exhausted from meetings to have dinner with him. Viktor's stomach turned. He deleted the message with shaking fingers. Deleted the investigator's contact. But the image burned in his mind, her body language, the intimacy of that touch, the fact that she'd lied. He'd violated her privacy because his insecurity had become unbearable. He'd become exactly the kind of man he despised. But God, that photograph. The way she leaned into Damien like she belonged there. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Ashford, Singapore is still waiting. Tell them the deal's off. Viktor's voice sounded hollow even to himself. Sir? The deal is off. Cancel everything for the rest of the day. He walked out past his confused assistant, past conference rooms filled with people building the empire he and Isla created. He walked until he reached the rooftop, the place they'd come 7 years ago when they first signed the papers creating Meridian Ventures. Viktor pulled out his phone and typed before courage failed him. We need to talk. Really talk. Not about business. About us. He watched the message deliver. Watch the typing indicator appear, disappear, reappear. Finally, tomorrow. 8 p.m., the rooftop where this started. Come alone. Come alone. Like Viktor would bring anyone else to the conversation that might end everything.